Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I bow to the infinite Lord. I bow to him in my Guru. I bow to him in all the forms of God, as my Guru and as God. And I bow to him in you, because you are that. I would like to read to you from this wonderful book of sayings that I've been blessed to be able to collect and blessed to be able to read to you. This is number 185. We were talking yesterday about the fact that after my Guru finished his Bhagavad Gita, he was in a very withdrawn state, and I would walk around with him, and on the day that I talked about, Boon, another disciple, was walking also with us. And Boon kept talking. Well, I'll read that later. But I talked about how the masters, there's no space or time to them. A master today can communicate with a great master who lived thousands of years ago. And this is another beautiful example of that. One of the questions Boon asked that day was following our walk. We were doing the energization exercise together in the Master's company by the garage. Boon's question concerned a saint who had appeared to the Master in a vision at the Encinitas Hermitage. "I don't know to whom you're referring," the Master said. "It was on the bluff overlooking the ocean, sir," Boon explained, "behind the Hermitage." "Well, so many come to me there, I often see them." Both of us were surprised. "Is that so?" I exclaimed. "Why be surprised?" the Master demanded. "Wherever God is, there his saints come." He paused in his practice of the exercises, then went on, "Yesterday I wanted to know about the life of Sri Ramakrishna. I was sitting on my bed meditating. Sri Ramakrishna materialized on the bed beside me, and we sat together a long time holding hands. I was thrilled to hear this account. "Did he tell you about his life?" I asked. "Well," replied the Master, "in the interchange of vibrations, I got the whole picture." At the end of this brief conversation, he went back to exercising. I submitted this interchange to the editorial department in his organization, our organization, years later, after the Master's Mahasamadhi. We had all been invited to send in material for a new book, which was published months later under the name The Master Said. I submitted about a quarter of those things. The editor was certain, evidently, that the Master would never have spoken so openly about his spiritual state as to say, "wherever God is." She amended those words, therefore, to read, "wherever a devotee of God is." But aren't all of us devotees? That editorial change reduced his statement to virtual insignificance. I feel I owe it to him to state that, yes, he did say on that occasion, "wherever God is." During his last years, at least, and particularly when speaking with the monks, he often referred with a perfectly natural air to his inner oneness with God. Several times during this period, he said to me, "Write my words down. I don't often speak from this level of jnana, of impersonal wisdom." I remember one time he was at the lake shrine, and there was a statue of Buddha, and they asked, "Master, where would you like the Buddha to sit? Where would you like the Buddha to sit? Where would you like us to place him?" Master, with sort of a humorous smile, said, "The Buddha prefers to remain standing." He didn't have there was no self-consciousness in it. He was that. That's what we all have to be. And sometimes the attitude of thinking to not make him seem egotistical went too far. There was no ego there. With us monks, he often talked in this way. As I told you just the other day, when one of his disciples said, when I look at you, I see Divine Mother, he said, then behave accordingly. He was one with Brahman, and he said that you must think of yourselves also in that way, not that you are Brahman, but Brahman is you. The wave cannot say, I am the ocean, but the ocean can say, I am the wave. I have become all the waves. In this consciousness, we should always try to live. There should always be in our relationships also a certain aloofness. We should be friendly to people, but always there should be a certain impersonal aspect to our love. Somebody didn't used to be able to understand that, and I said, really, I have much more love for you because it is impersonal. Because it's not that I'm impersonal myself. I'm very personal in loving you. It's that I don't feel I'm loving. I feel that love is coming through me. So it's with myself that I'm impersonal. Master could be very personal to his disciples in the sense of being very concerned for an individual, very concerned for his needs, very sympathetic with his needs. His impersonality did not mean he would look at somebody suffering and say, well, it's your problem. Not at all. But he never felt that he was directly involved. He always wanted and felt that it was God, loving God, God serving God, God working through him. And he said, in this way, you should love other people, not with the indifference that the word impersonal may seem to imply, but rather with the understanding that it is God's love that I'm trying to express, not human love, because in human love there is attachment. This is why in many ways it is good to think more of God in terms of his joy than of love, because love can become personal. One time Radha and Krishna were walking through the forest, and Radha began to get this very personal feeling that she owned Krishna in a sense. She was his own, he was her own. He caught that thought, and he said to her, would you like me to carry you? Are you tired? And she was so pleased. She said, oh, yes. So he had her stoop over so he could jump onto her back, and he jumped onto her back, and she jumped onto his back, I'm sorry. As she did so, he disappeared. She landed flat on her face in the ground. And she said, oh, Lord, I'm so sorry. I've misunderstood. I understand now. I'll never do it again. Please forgive me. And he materialized again. They walked side by side through the forest. But his love was never particular. When you read the stories of the Krishna and the gopis, his love for Radha was because there was no personal love. Mostly, sometimes that delusion could enter her, but mostly it was not there. He could express love for her in a way that he couldn't for the gopis because most of them were too personal. There was one time the gopis were beginning to feel jealous of Radha because he seemed to love her more than others. So he decided to teach them a lesson. And he said, oh, I have such a headache, such a headache. And they all said, oh, Master, if there's anything we can do, just anything, we'll do it. Please tell us. He said that nothing can help except if one of you will press her feet on my head, then the headache will go away. And they said, oh my God, to put your feet on the head of the Lord of the universe, it's just unthinkable. It would be a great sin, and none of them dared to do it. And Radha wasn't there, but she came. And she saw that he was in pain and suffering. And so she said, Master, what is there? Lord, what can I do for you? He said, if only someone will put her feet on my head, I will be cured. He said, instantly, Lord. And she started to put her feet on his head, and the other gopi said, oh, sinner, you'll go to hell for committing such a sin. And Radha said, I would gladly go to hell for eternity if I could give my Lord one moment of comfort. Then they understood. She didn't have to put her feet on his head. He sat up cured. You see, when you really love, and especially when you love God, who loves you not ever personally, except that he loves you, but he's not a person loving you. He is you. He loves himself in you. When you can love in that way, then you are fit to be a companion of God. Not until. That's why Radha received more expression of love from Krishna than other gopis. But he had the same love for all. He had the same love for you. He has that love for you. But I have seen disciples who began to think that the Master loved them particularly. It's kind of pathetic, because I knew he didn't have that kind of love for people. He didn't think they were special. It was he that was special because he was them, and he could love them with that pure and impersonal love. Those who didn't understand, he couldn't show that much love, but he had it for everyone. And know that God plays no favorites. He only seems to play favorites with his saints, because they can appreciate that love in the spirit in which it is given to them. And when that love grows impersonal and deep, there's a beautiful thing in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It says that the Lord replied to Arjuna as if smiling. My Guru said you have to go very far on the path before you'll reach that point where you feel God's smile in your heart, and you actually may see him smiling. But that takes advancement. He always loves you, but he doesn't show you that until you make yourself ready. Learn to be absolute in your love. Learn to love him impersonally, in the sense that I have nothing to offer you because it's all yours anyway. Don't feel you're making a sacrifice when you give him things. A man in America put $100 in the collection plate and then was offended with God that he didn't answer his prayers. Master said he already was that $100. What did it mean to him? It's that you need to give in order to purify your own heart. Otherwise, God's already got it. He is everything. But when you give to him with that love, then, feeling that you have nothing to give him, he understands and gives you everything. There's that beautiful Bengali song, I can give you salvation, but don't ask my love and devotion, because when I give those away, I become poor, walking on your heart's way. God gives himself away when he gives himself to you. But you see what the song is saying really is, don't give me. In other words, do ask for my love and devotion. Don't ask for salvation. It's a sweet way of putting it. I remember him singing this song, Mukti dete pari, Mukti dete pari, Bhakti dete pari koi. That koi literally means where, but it means, why ask me that? It means don't ask me that. It's just a very sweet and slightly backwards way of saying, that's what you should be asking for. Ask for God's love, nothing else matters. All the things in this world, they just crumble to dust. There's no meaning in anything except in God's love. You know, I had the great blessing and joy of editing his book of Rubat, the Rubat of and it was one of the highlights of my life working on that book. But one day, as he said, that he was in tune with Roma Khayyam, and it was, as that woman proved in Sydney, he felt that this is what, he was in tune with that. He wasn't in tune with the poem of Edward Fitzgerald. He was a worldly man and didn't even understand that the love that Omar Khayyam was talking about was divine love, that the beloved was God, not a girl, that the wine that he was drinking was ecstasy. The wilderness he said, our wilderness were paradise now, but the wilderness means the silence of God. It's all these words are symbols. The Sufis have a wonderful way of expressing these divine sentiments through symbols. And it was in that consciousness that the Master wrote that. He opened the book of the Edward Fitzgerald translation, and he said this, that all of a sudden, it's as if a veil fell and he saw all the things that Omar Khayyam really intended through that poem. It was in that level that he wrote it. And one morning I was amazed and thrilled to find that all of a sudden a melody came to my mind. It was in my mind when I woke up. Awake for morning in the bowl of night, has flung the stone that puts the stars to flight. The whole melody of those things came to me, and it fits all those stanzas. I will sing this for you in a few moments, and it treats the whole human condition in such a beautiful way that it really, when you understand the meaning of it, when I read all of that onto a tape, the whole book, but when I came toward the end, I could hardly finish that last stanza. I had to record it several times because the joy of it was so great, it just overwhelmed me. Well, this morning that melody came to my mind, and toward the end I want to read also that one stanza, ah, moon of my delight, to knowest no wane, the moon of heaven is rising once again. How oft hereafter rising shall she look through this same garden after me in vain. You see, this is the goal of life. No longer to be wandering in delusion, no longer wandering in this garden of this world. Ah, moon of my delight, who knowest no wane. He meant the infinite moon of God, who doesn't wax and wane like the worldly moon up above the world, and like human joys and fulfillments and disappointments and sorrows, they're constantly waxing and waning. This world of duality is in constant flux. But when you know him, you know something that is always with you. Worldly pleasures, worldly joys, they fade after a time. But God's joy does not wane. That's why my Guru, when he translated the words of Shankaracharya, the meaning of Satchidananda, he added the expression ever new, not just ever conscious, ever existing, but ever new bliss, because it never becomes boring. As I told you recently, listening to the Om sound, it was as if I knew I could never get tired of it, because it was my own being. And so that divine bliss is you, and you drink that bliss through eternity. You couldn't possibly get tired of it. That is the goal of the spiritual life. That's what my Guru came to awaken in us, the desire to know that. Satchidananda. Joy to you. Awake for morning in the bowl of night, has flung the stone that puts the stars to flight. And lo, the hunter of the east has caught the Sultan's turret in a noose of light. Dreaming when dawn's left hand was in the sky, I heard a voice within the tavern cry, awake, my little ones, and fill the cup before life's liquor in its cup be dry. Ah, moon of my delight, who knowest no wane, the moon of heaven is rising once again. How oft hereafter rising shall she look through this same garden after me in